Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14 here to recap SEC basketball games from Saturday, February the 19th. Blake, let's start in Lexington. We've tried to send Kentucky to Dayton. People have tried to make their season over with, but you can't kill the Cats. And for whatever reason, Kentucky's got Tennessee's number. For Tennessee, I think it was the same old story when it goes wrong for the Vols. They don't shoot it well. And Kentucky gets a big win. I'm not going to say Kentucky's a lock for the NCAA tournament yet, and we'll get to that in our bracketology later, but that was a huge win for the Cats.
Yeah, sometimes a team just has another team's number, and that's the case this season with Kentucky and Tennessee. I mean, really, there's a lot of similarities in how that game played out and the first one played out. So, I mean, yeah, sometimes that's just it. I mean, we can try to, as we said going into it, I wouldn't have touched that game from a betting standpoint for anything because you can say, well, yeah, I knew exactly how it was going to play out. Well, I mean, with both of these teams, I had no clue. And we said as much kind of in our preview. We went with Tennessee because, well, Tennessee just come off beating the number one team in the country. And you thought maybe that would be enough to sort of push them forward with a little more momentum, perhaps, and revenge on the mind. But, yeah, it didn't happen because Kentucky just outplayed them. And Tennessee couldn't hit a shot. And from outside and from the free throw line, you're not going to win many games going 4 of 14 from the line, 6 of 27 from three. So, yeah, just another one of those games for Tennessee where you look in the offensive numbers. And I think we said last time, it's like, hey, if you looked at it, they actually shot pretty well from inside the arc in the first meeting. And they shot 50% in the second meeting, shot 56% the first game, 60% or 50% the second game from two. But same story. Took a lot of threes and didn't hit many of those threes and couldn't make a free throw. So, so yeah, I mean, it's just one of those games where now look, I know what people are going to say. Well, Kentucky shot 35 free throws, Tennessee shot 14. That's fine, but I mean, still, I thought the better team won the game. So I think anyone watching that probably would have came up with the same thing. I just thought Kentucky was the better team, and yes, they got more opportunities at the free throw line, but I just think again, this was one of those games that you look at from both sides, and Tennessee got off to a bad start, and I mean, once again, still playing without some key players. But guess what? So is Kentucky, and this was kind of a game where
no Frederick, no Wheeler.
Yeah, no. I mean, on Tennessee side, we know who didn't play either, and so it's just one of those things where it was really just a matter of I think you're a Tennessee fan, you're frustrated because you just beat Alabama, but now you score 54 points, which, I mean, what? Let me look here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 out of the last 6 games, they haven't scored over 68 points. Which, again, with their defense, they don't always have to do that. But I just think, again, it's some of these games, not the ability to go such a long stretch without being able to make a shot or just the inconsistency there. And once again, you're not going to go 4 for 14 from the free throw line every night. But I thought this was about Tennessee, but it was also about Kentucky stepping up and getting a potential, tournament clinching win. And as we said before, probably should have banked on this because the last time Kentucky lost 2 in a row and made you scratch your head, well, they turned around and went on a 4-game winning streak or 2-game winning streak, and here they are yet again.
All right, moving down the schedule roughly in order that the games tipped off. Man, if you're Matt McMahon, you got to be pulling your hair out. They finally get a big scoring game from somebody. This time it was Cam Hayes. He gets 25 points, hits 4 3-pointers, pulls 8 boards. And so what happens, of course? They catch good South Carolina, which always comes on the road, as we've said again and again. And hey, it's the same thing when Carolina wins games, it seems like. It's Messi Johnson having a good game. Sometimes it's Brown having a good game. G.G. Jackson comes back from the dead, gives him 20 points after not playing a lot lately. I don't know how much it's worth diving into this game, but what do you take away from this?
Well, hold on one second before we get into that one. I know Kentucky and Tennessee fans are not going to be happy that we just spent about 3 minutes on that game.
Well, and to be for clarity, we are we got to cram a lot of stuff into a short window this morning. So,
Well, just to add a couple more things, just quickly on that, and then I'll give you my cliff notes on LSU South Carolina. But just quickly, I think again a couple of things that sort of stand out. We talked about Chris Livingston. Just I think he has been a big reason why in recent games we said it kind of in the Mississippi State game. Um, he's starting to figure some things out. I think he's starting to kind of find his groove, and I thought that again in this one. Had a double double, 12 points, 10 rebounds. So I think we got to continue to look at Kentucky at their best. Is if he's playing the way he's been playing, that's only going to help them. I think obviously once they do get Wheeler and Frederick back, who will give them some minutes, but I think Livingston's emergence and more consistent play has been a big reason, for them kind of pushing forward in the right direction. And I just think that's one of those aspects that probably shouldn't be overlooked at this point. And so I thought that was kind of impressive just to see what he's continued to do on that side. I think on the Tennessee side, like it's getting a point from Tyreek Key, goes 0 of 4 from 3. I think that's always going to be something we look at with Tennessee, where if they're struggling offensively, there's going to be some of those games where they're going to need him to make 3-point shots. And look, he's been able to do it, right? I mean, look, the Missouri game, we talked about that. Obviously, they still lost that one, but we mentioned kind of how it's kind of just a different deal based on how that game ended, and had two good scoring games against Vandy and Missouri, but still, as we said, just two teams that got hot on the opposite side. But I think that's going to be something that we look at. They've kind of got to have him, I think, making a couple 3-point shots a game just to kind of ease some of that from just from just a perimeter shooting standpoint, especially when Ziegler's not making a ton of shots. Vescovy went 3 of 8 from 3, which 17 points. That's a Vescovy line there, but I still just look at some of those kind of things with Tennessee, and again, it's you don't want to get they're not pushing it to that extreme, right? They don't want to get too far back in the direction of we were laughing earlier in the season, right, about the Colorado game where they shot whatever 43s or 37, whatever it was. But I do still think, for this team in particular, we kind of know like their scoring can come in a variety of ways, but I think it's just once again you're going to have a hard time winning if you're not getting production from Key, or you have some guys that are struggling to make shots, especially again in that kind of setting on the road without a Julian Phillips, without a Josiah Jordan James, that can kind of help you alleviate some of those scoring issues. I mean, that just kind of I thought was the name of the game. You don't want to take anything away either from Meshack, who I think is someone too that we've kind of seen. That was sort of his breakout game, I guess you could say, career high 16. But I think he's someone else that you want to talk about development. As a sophomore, I think he's been someone that definitely keep an eye on, because he could be kind of that X factor perhaps as they go down the stretch run here. And if Tennessee's going to get where they want to go, I think that's a big part of it. But I just wanted to add a few more of those things in there because I know that fans were. It's a big game, as we said, for both teams, but Kentucky potential season changing win there with that one. All right, LSU South Carolina. I'm going to do this in 30 seconds. My response is I should have never let you talk me out of trying to convince me to put LSU ahead of South Carolina in my power rankings, which in turn caused me to pick LSU to beat South Carolina because I should have just kept it the way I wanted to keep it, and that was to say that South Carolina is the better team. Well, I'm just saying South Carolina's the better team right now, and I should have just leaned on that because that was my argument earlier last week in the power rankings, was that I just thought South Carolina was better at this point, even though we could say LSU's got this tough schedule. But if you just looked at how the teams were playing, I should have just leaned on that instead of picking LSU to stop the streak. But now, boy, give South Carolina credit. Like you said earlier, I mean, a lot of balanced scoring, 4 guys between 16 and 20 points. That's pretty remarkable to get that kind of balance, because you have to do it. I mean, and what we say too with South Carolina, if they're going to win these kind of games on the road, it's going to be a matter of like, if they get hot from 3, good luck, because they're going to win some, like they did Kentucky, right? They go 15 of 32 from 3, 17 of 18 from the free throw line. I thought that was even more impressive. sometimes with the free throw shooting woes we see in this league. And meanwhile, LSU couldn't, they only made half their free throws, I think. So, good win for South Carolina, as I said. Give Lamont Paris credit, give the entire team credit. They never quit going through, just getting drubbed by 40 something here and 20 something there. Like they just kept kind of, chipping away, getting a little better each game. And now when you really look at the last 5 games, they've played some solid basketball. And I'm not saying they're going to go out and beat Alabama or Tennessee this week, but I still think there's credit and recognition deserved there, because they could have easily folded it up and said, "Boy, we are definitely the worst team in the SEC, and we're going to get blown out every night." But they haven't, and yeah, credit to them for that.
Okay, Arkansas, Florida. I don't know that there is a team in the league that could less afford to lose a player more than Florida could afford to lose Colin Castleton, because I think the drop from him to Jason Jatoba is pretty steep. That's how it played out on Saturday. I think we expected Arkansas to win this one pretty big, which it did, 84-65. That said, the way that it played out, I don't think was expected. We didn't know what Nick Smith Jr.'s role was going to be. He plays 32 minutes, gets 10 points. But the big story, Jalen Graham, the Arizona State transfer, who has flashed here and there, comes off the bench, gives him 26 points in 27 minutes. So, yeah, maybe some things we didn't expect in this one, Blake. I mean, the result was not a surprise, but the how to me was.
Well, some things we also did expect too, and that was Florida offensively without Colin Castleton is not great. I think that was very evident. It's just, and again, it's not taking anything away from, we talked about Riley Kugel before, and I know he's another sort of under the radar player this year as a freshman, and we got some guys that can score, but just a different team without him. And when another team makes that run, it's just hard, I think, for Florida, because you take that element of Castleton off the floor, and teams can defend you just in a much different way. And obviously, teams can attack you in a different way too, offensively. And that's what Arkansas did here. And yeah, I mean, 5 guys in double figures? The Jalen Graham game, which, as we said, is going to happen. Once every 5 games or so. Um, like I said, that sort of like that's actually how it's played out. So it looks like it's like once every 5 or 6 games, like he pops up and scores 16 or more. Yeah. So I mean, that's good, because we've said that before with Arkansas. It's like you're going to have some of those performances from some of these guys. It's just a matter of figuring out when you're going to get them, but when you really need them and they give them to you, hey, that's great. So like I said, that one at South Carolina, if he doesn't play the way he plays at South Carolina, gives them some production offensively, maybe they don't win that game, and they're sitting on the outside looking in or something right now based on that loss. But so I think that's it's definitely one of those things that it's good to have a guy like that, because he may, we always say, like, some of these guys' minutes, the distribution for the bench guys for Arkansas is going to vary, wildly from game to game. But you kind of know what you're getting in terms of the guys who are going to play the most minutes, and just that kind of setting there. And so, yeah, I mean, that was a big part of it. But the Nick Smith thing, yeah, I mean, the guy's good when you actually see him out there, in a rhythm. And um, I think you kind of saw that. Clearly looked like he had a little more confidence, a little more bounce. And yeah, I mean, I still say this, and like he went 0-4 from 3, but I still think he's someone that's going to give them that element of being able to knock down some outside shots. And look, I know this year you can look at the numbers, like they're not great, but I still think he's someone, though, that will be able to knock down some of those shots from outside. Because I think he'll have to, because once again, that's still an element for Arkansas you have to talk about. But what they did in this game was they didn't rely on that. And that's what we always say, right? They only shot 10 threes. They only made 2 of them, but they only shot 10 of them. And like that's not what they do well. And they just attacked, got to the free throw line. And so I think that's how Arkansas is going to win, especially against a team like Florida, who didn't have their best defensive player in the middle. And that, again, just changes things. But they approached the game the right way. Without Colin Castleton, they didn't just sit back and shoot threes, because that would have made no sense. They took it to them, tried to get more easier shots, and it paid off. And so, yeah, nice work from Arkansas. As we said, that was one of 2 games they absolutely have to have the rest of the way. Next one coming up will be Georgia at home, but they got this one, and now it's just a matter of getting the next one. So
Okay, Mississippi State really needed bad loss avoidance in that game with Ole Miss, which is not easy to do when you're playing a team that plays hard and it's an in-state rival. State escapes in overtime. Who else? Toulouse Smith, 17 points, 12 boards. State put 4 guys in double figures. Jamari Brakefield again played well for Ole Miss, played all but one of the 45 minutes. Matt Morrell did go the distance for Ole Miss. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much there is to unpack here, but this was sort of a tournament game for State in the sense that it sort of had to win to keep its NCAA tournament eligibility alive. Probably it doesn't really help its case, but a loss here could have been fatal or really close to it.
I mean, I told you I thought this was going to be a tricky game. Like, I just did not have a lot of confidence in Mississippi State coming out and just handling Ole Miss like I think some people did. I just did not see that happening because Ole Miss is just the kind of team that Ole Miss has been pretty consistent. And I know it's like, well, they're 2-12, but like if you really look at it, they've actually been pretty consistent um, in keeping some of these games close. Now, again, that's not been every game, but it is kind of an interesting thing to think about with Ole Miss. But they just have not made enough of those plays this season to even turn half of those games into wins, and it's just not been there. And sometimes you have those kind of seasons, and unfortunately, it's been that for Ole Miss this year. But yeah, Mississippi State, I thought the biggest glaring thing, and they talked about it on the broadcast, was this was an overtime game. It's a game that goes to overtime. It's close the entire way. It's back and forth. Basically that entire second half was just every possession felt huge because you never thought that either team was going to be able to push it out because of why. And we said this going into the game, 2 of the worst 3-point shooting teams out there. You never thought that these two teams were just going to all of a sudden get hot, and they didn't. I mean, there were a lot of threes being taken. 3 of 18 for Mississippi State, 3 of 22 for Ole Miss. So you knew the game was going to stay close, and that meant what? Once the game got down to it, you have to make big shots. Specifically, you got to make big shots from the free throw line. And Mississippi State goes 18 of 21 from the free throw line, hit some big ones there. Remember, this is a team that shoots 63.8%, 348th nationally. So that was a huge, positive development, I think, for Mississippi State. Being able to hit those kind of hit free throws in close games, is going to be the difference in them being a team that makes the NCAA tournament and maybe can win a game or two, or, loses a 5-point game because they went 12 of 28 from the free throw line. And I think that's always what worries you a little bit. But, defensively, though, they're still really good, and they're always going to have a chance with how they play on the defensive side. They turn the ball over a bit here, but again, that's where their defense can help them out. They can still force tough shots. Ole Miss had to take some tough, and Ole Miss hit some tough shots. But still, that I think is what's going to win these games for Mississippi State. And just the free throw numbers I thought were just, that's what you want to see if you're a Mississippi State fan. They could have easily lost this game, had they shot from the line what they've shot in some other games. They lose this one, they're off the bubble or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, so that's encouraging. And yeah, now they just, as we said with some of these other teams, they kind of gave an opportunity away against Kentucky at home. Now you just got to go make up those opportunities if you want to comfortably get into the tournament. And that could start, on Tuesday night with a win at Missouri. Because I think that one, all of a sudden that one looks big. They still got A&M at home. They got Vanderbilt on the road, which looks bigger now. So, yeah, Mississippi State still has some opportunity available.
Okay, I don't know what to say about this next one except this. You really don't want to play Alabama, and you really, 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 really don't want to play Alabama after Alabama gets beat.
No, I mean, they've won by 57 and 49 in their last two losses. So, yeah, like you said, we always say, how's the team respond? That's our question. We asked that after the Oklahoma game. We said specifically, what's the storyline going into this Alabama Vanderbilt game? I said one thing: how does Alabama respond? And they responded by beating Vanderbilt by 57 points, and that will be brought up in our bracketology. You better believe it, because boy, I've got some stuff to say about that. Georgia just happened to be on the wrong end of things. Yeah, and once again though, that I'm not going to do it, Chris. I thought about it. I'm not going to do it.
Oh,
Alabama
please do.
offensively, their issues offensively that they're having apparently. They looked okay here to me, but again, there's a difference between Georgia defense and Tennessee defense, and I am certainly willing to admit that.
Come
And
on,
so,
let it loose. Let it. You'll feel
no,
better.
but look, it is different, right? Like, just think about that though. Like, that's the point though of the argument made. And I'm not, again, I didn't say I disagree with the argument. It's just, if you're going to make that argument, it is a difference. Like, look at what you do against Tennessee, but look at what you can do against Georgia. Because Georgia doesn't defend as well as Tennessee, and they're not up in you all the time. You're getting more easy shots. So yeah, Alabama hit 16 threes, shot 80%, I think, from two. I mean, I don't know. But here's what I loved about this. 26 assists. Come on. But I guess when you make as many shots as they made, um, that's fine. So I don't know what else to add on this. I mean, Alabama just did what Alabama does after a loss. They come out frustrated and angry, and they just took it to Georgia, and this game was never close. I will say this though, I thought Alabama was going to put up 150.
There were several games this weekend that, yeah.
By the way, there's a delay
And our
now. It's
apologies to the
official.
audience. We've got a little
So,
delay here.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, don't get me started.
All right.
Everything was fine until 2 weeks ago. Okay. Ran over. There were a lot of games this weekend I didn't know what to expect. And I think A&M Missouri was at maybe number one on that list. And I did not expect Missouri to be that uncompetitive at home for most of the game. Huge win for A&M. To go to Missouri, pick up a win against a team that looks like it's going to the NCAA tournament in a spot where A&M has got a lot of wins, but the resume isn't phenomenal. So I don't know that hurts Missouri at all, but I think seeing A&M perform on that stage the way it did, I think just underscores our perception that it's a really good team.
I think it does hurt Missouri a little bit, but again, we'll talk about that in the bracketology video. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I mean, I picked Missouri to win. We talked about that. That's beside the point here. And if you're making picks, here's what I'm going to suggest: pick the underdog in the SEC, because SEC underdogs, like the last 2 or 3 Saturdays, have just a ridiculous record. So really keep that in mind if you're going to pick. Which I'm telling this, I'm repeating this so I can hear it, so I can tell myself this. Always pick the underdogs.
5 of 7, I think, covered this weekend.
I don't know. I think it was 4, maybe 4. Underdogs went 4 and 3 this
Vandy
weekend. Went
did.
5 and 2
Kentucky
last
did.
week.
Carolina did. Maybe not Ole Miss.
It was 4.
So that's 4. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, they went 4 and 3 this weekend. They went 5 and 2 the weekend before. So they've fared very well recently. But yeah, this was. But look, the A&M can do this, right? And once again, if anybody still wants to pick apart A&M, what else do they have to do at this point? What else does this team have to do? They're 12 and 2 in the league with 4 games left. I don't think they're going to lose all 4 of those, but even if they do, it's probably borderline. But I mean, this is an NCAA tournament team. Let's not kid ourselves anymore. Let's stop trying to pick apart resume. Like, they're 12 and 2 in the SEC. They've lost 2 games since December the 20th. 2 months. They've lost 2 games. And yeah, like they're not the team from, again, December anymore. Like, let's make it clear. Like, this is, and again, wonder why I didn't pick them, because like I've been the one that's saying they're not going anywhere. But maybe I leaned a little too far in my Dennis Gates direction on that one. Don't worry, Missouri fans, I'm never picking you again. That's what you told me on Twitter, so I can never pick you again. Yeah, I mean, they just came out, and you could tell early on, like, they had the advantage in terms of how they were playing. And Missouri just, it's the same thing, right? how many offensive rebounds? It felt like, I mean, the number was 16. Felt like Missouri gave up 85 offensive rebounds in that game. So you give A&M some second chance opportunities. Missouri couldn't make threes, the 9 of 26, which is not terrible, but again, they probably need to make a few more of those because Kobe Brown had 5 of them, I think. I put the stat on Twitter, and I kind of was joking here, but it may actually hold as an unofficial stat. I think Missouri was like 0 of 32 in potential game-changing plays. Like, potential if you get an offensive rebound, you can, go down and cut it to 6 or 5. They couldn't get the offensive rebound. Or you get a steal, or you actually get the defense rebound, and they make a pass. I don't remember who it was. They go for the long pass or something, and it gets stolen. So again, every time they had a chance to cut this thing down to where maybe, just maybe, they're about to make that run to tie the thing up or take the lead, never happened because all of those kind of sequences where everything needed to go Missouri's way, it may have went their way for one part of it, but the whole thing, then it just kind of turns and it goes back in A&M's direction. And that was the story of the game for me, is every time Missouri had a chance to get close or make that next play that would put them in position, to get even closer, to get that thing under 8 or wherever it was, they just could never do it. And so, forced 21 turnovers. But those are the kind of teams that I think if you're looking at Missouri the rest of the way, you do not want to see. You do not want to see teams that play the way A&M plays. Because look, that's the season sweep now, right? For A&M, they took care of business by 18, College Station. And so, those are just the Mississippi State's another example, right? Auburn. Think about how those teams play. Those are just the kind of teams I think Missouri, and the Tennessee one's kind of the outlier because, again, you would think that would be a team that Missouri would really struggle against. But nice win for A&M, 12-2 in the league. They're in the NCAA tournament.
Okay, probably the game of the day if you combine excitement. I mean, this game was close the whole way. If you combine significance, we'll get to some more of that in bracketology. Vanderbilt holds off Auburn with a last-second layup. And by the way, did you see? I don't think it would have counted, but did you see Auburn's last shot?
Jalen Williams, yeah.
The back rimming a 90-footer. I mean,
It wouldn't
it wouldn't have counted, but just to see somebody do it, because I mean he had to get that off quickly too. Yeah. That was pretty amazing. Man, Auburn brought a ton of people to Nashville. Probably had half the gym or close to it. That game was, I think, sold out or close to it. I wasn't there, but just talking to people who were. Vandy sort of stays alive. We'll get into the Commodores a little bit more bracketology, but man, Blake, Liam Robbins hit 17 free throws for them. He's just carrying the Commodores right now.
Yeah, I heard about that a little bit on Twitter from the Auburn fans. Yeah, I mean, he got to the free throw line 20 times and made 17 of them. Yeah, 24 points, 12 rebounds. He's pretty good. Seems like, he should play as much as he can because he's pretty good at this thing. And, I mean, at this point, it's like, why should I ever pick against Vanderbilt again? Like, I mean, this team is just, for a team that's been the
unluckiest. You want to play Vandy when it's coming off a 57-point loss.
Well, for a team that's been the unluckiest team in the SEC for about a decade running, probably not that long, but it's been
can't lose a close game now all of a sudden.
Well, yeah, against it always kind of, it's like the Missouri effect, like we've talked about kind of at times this season, where it's like you're so unlucky for a certain time, and then it's got to bounce back at some point. And it's kind of happening for Vanderbilt right now, where everything's just kind of bouncing their way, and they're making shots, and and having, again, your best player on the floor definitely helps that in Liam Robbins. So once again, they did it. And for Auburn, Auburn's now lost 6 of 8.
It's going to get a little dicey, yeah.
And I think they are the team I'd probably be most concerned about right now when it comes to the NCAA tournament. Again, outside of a Mississippi State or teams that we thought were definitely going to get there, whatever, a month ago. That's the group I'm talking about. Like they are one that they've got some work to do to feel good about where they are. I think at this point, which they'll play Ole Miss on. We'll get to that in bracketology. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but just to point that out, Auburn has lost 6 of 8, and yeah, they've got to figure out a way to get some wins here down the stretch. But again, we'll kind of piggyback and transition this into bracketology for the next video. So
yeah, we're going a little shorter than we would normally do on these Saturday recap videos today because we've got the overlap of baseball and basketball and other stuff going on too. So anyway, any parting thoughts, any topics we didn't cover?
No, we'll have bracketology coming up. By the way, at this point in the season, bracketology is just going to replace power rankings. So we apologize if you wanted to hear us debate the South Carolina LSU one, which, by the way, South Carolina's ahead of LSU in my power rankings. There's no debate anymore.
I would concur.
So, yeah, we're just going to replace basketball power rankings basically with baseball power rankings moving forward. And your basketball power rankings, again, are essentially your bracketology now. You guys have seen enough games. You know where teams are at. There's no reason for us to necessarily go through and spend too much time trying to say, well, this team, this 4-way tie that, at 8th place, this is why we think it. Again, you kind of hear us talk about it in reaction and hear us in bracketology. So it kind of becomes redundant. So we're not going to do that kind of at this stage of the season. But if you want our power rankings, let us know and we'll send them to you in the comments or something. But that is kind of what we're thinking on that. So hit subscribe and a lot more to come.
Yeah, subscribe costs you nothing. It helps you find our stuff. It helps other people find our stuff, which helps us. In any case, baseball and more basketball stuff coming up. So thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon with that.